All right, everybody, welcome in to our first, not another episode, our first episode of the Undrafted Analyst. Just one analyst today as I'm still trying to work everything out. Currently in the process of potentially moving soon, so that's a lot on my mind. Been working a lot, so don't worry. I'm going to have the opportunity at one point in time to have some guests on here, have some multiple people on here. But for right now, I'm riding solo on the podcast, guys. Quickly, guys, what this is going to be about, I really want to first welcome you guys to the Undrafted Analyst. It's something I've been really wanting to push forward for over a year now, over probably almost 2 years now, with the Undrafted Analysts. I really don't know what it was going to become. I came up with the name. I wanted to be a podcast style type video format or audio format, and I just didn't know where to go with that. But this is our first episode, guys. I'm kicking it off. I'm just going right in for it. Quickly, what this is going to be about, as you guys are going to watch me grow as a content creator, as I shift my kind of content. Of course, my Giants content is not going to change, but I've been really trying to experiment myself as a content creator, try to keep myself freshened up as I try to find my niche in this YouTube world as an analyst. And I really, really like the podcast format. I really love talking football. I really love having almost an unlimited amount of time to talk football and not just, fit it all in one segment and kind of go on from there. So, that being said, guys, if you guys are very familiar with the Strong Opinion Sports Podcast with Zach Schaumler, hosted by Zach Schaumler, it's going to be very similar to that. I'm not going to sugarcoat that in any sort of way. He is a huge, huge inspiration to this podcast, and he's definitely a reason why I really wanted to push this forward as quickly as I did. I know it's been years in the process, but sometimes it takes that long for something like this to happen. It takes that long, and for me, it's a little bit rushed, but I really wanted to get it out there for you guys. I've really been, every single week, I want to talk something that I really just can't do without doing the podcast because I want to have so much time. So, guys, this is not going to be something you need to watch. I just have it there for the guys with the low attention span. Like myself, I have to be looking at something as well, unless I'm riding in a car, unless I'm doing something else, homework, research, doing anything, cooking, cleaning, anything. You guys can be listening to this podcast. You guys don't need to be watching this. I just have it on video. Just for the podcast clips will include editing, but these are just going to be raw. The full episodes are going to be raw, no editing, just the audio and my camera, and that's pretty much it. So if you guys are very familiar with Strong Opinion Sports, he uploads the whole podcast and then has some clips in it as well. Pretty much what you're going to see from me and pretty much what you see from every major show out there. First Take, The Herd, First Things First, all of those other shows out there is pretty much going to be what it's like here. So I really have to kind of focus on talking all in one take, as I'm extremely spoiled and extremely used to taking advantage of the power of editing and just editing out my mistakes, as I just did right now, editing out my mistakes, editing out any kind of pauses that may lure someone off the video, any sort of mess up in any kind of form, any sort of malfunction with my camera or malfunction with my computer that I need to solve while I'm recording. I have to stop that. So I just want to thank you guys for listening in. Anybody that's really going through this intro and listening to the intro, anybody that's watching the intro, I really want to thank you guys for being here. You guys are the reason why I'm doing this, and I just love talking football with you guys. So that's pretty much the intro, guys. Quick little rundown, quick little summary. It's going to be I'm not going to say exactly, but very similar to Strong Opinion Sports with Zach Schaumler. Huge influence in my YouTube career right now. I know he's come on just recently and he's blown up, and for a good reason. Nothing but extreme respect for the guy. Admire him. I would love to host a show one day with him, whether it be on his channel or my channel. I would just love to talk to the guy, talk football with the guy. So it will be very similar. This show will be very similar to that. So if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys check out Strong Opinion Sports. So I do want to get talking about certain football subjects. But before I do want to quickly note out my New York Giants cup here that I got from a coworker just today. He asked me, this is, long overdue Christmas present, I guess. He asked me, of course he knew my favorite team. He just asked me my favorite player. Obviously, it's Saquon Barkley. I didn't know he would get me a cup like this. Otherwise, I would have said, my favorite number is 27, and I would have had the 27 cup here. Maybe I can get another one. Maybe I can find out where he got this from, who made it, and try to get another cup, and this time 27, have 2 cups. But it says number 26, obviously, for Saquon Barkley, but it would have been amazing to put this, in the video and have that number 27 there. But for right now, I guess I'll just have it down here, with the New York Giants logo on here, but extremely thankful for this. It's an awesome cup, man. You guys can see, if you guys are watching on video, you guys can see the yard lines here, 30, 20, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It's awesome. I can't wait to use this. I can't wait to use this as a prop, especially when I move and I get a studio set up. But I can't wait to use that. You guys see the merch. You guys see the New York Giants, memorabilia and merch out here. The hats, the little towel, the fan towel. I have a throw here somewhere. I have a portrait. I just love this stuff. But just want to quickly shout out my friend, my coworker who got me this. Extremely thankful for that. But let's talk some football, guys. We have some news that broke out today. I have a couple of topics I want to talk about here today. And I did want to mention the XFL in this episode, but I don't think I will have enough time. So let's keep the XFL episode. Let's keep the XFL video for the next podcast. That segment will be for the next podcast. I do want to talk about 3 topics, though, and you guys know I love to talk, so I'll try to experiment on how long I should talk about these topics in this episode and kind of go on from there. So let's first talk about, and we have 3 topics today. I'll give you the whole rundown. We have 3 topics today. I want to talk about first Bill O'Brien and the Houston Texans, him being promoted from just the head coach position to the head coach and GM position. And then I want to talk about Phillip Rivers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then I want to talk about Eli Manning and his Hall of Fame status and where he stands as a retired quarterback from the NFL. So let's start things off with the Houston Texans announcing that Bill O'Brien will be the GM and head coach for the Houston Texans. Now, this honestly comes as a shock, as we all know Bill O'Brien did actually a decent job, managing the head coach position and the GM position. As you guys know, they fired their GM. I believe his name was Bob Rain or something, Bill Rain, something like that, as he was fired, and Bill O'Brien took on the reins as GM, kind of a temporary interim GM until they could eventually or potentially find themselves another GM. And he did a lot there, man. He made a lot of moves that a lot of GMs who actually had the title as GM wouldn't do. He made a lot of trades. He traded for Kenny Stills. He traded for Laramie Tunsil. He traded away Jadeveon Clowney. He did a lot of these things. He also signed Duke Johnson as well. He traded for Duke Johnson, if I'm not mistaken. So he did a lot of things there. The draft was okay, so. We'll see where it goes from there. He brought in a couple of veteran players like Garyon Conley, the young Ohio State corner, formerly of the Oakland Raiders. He also brought in Vernon Hargreaves, who was cut from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not quite sure how those signings are really going to benefit the team, but they're definitely spot holders until they can find better players. As you guys know, they got rid of Kevin Johnson, who went to the Bills in free agency last year. But that being said, Bill O'Brien is now the GM. I don't know how I feel about this, being that, his debacle and kind of crumbling in the playoffs, in that second half of that game, you can really see the panic in Bill O'Brien by his play calling. You could see that he was getting a little flustered, a little, the lights were a little too bright for Bill O'Brien. He was really, really melting under pressure, very similar to what we've seen with Pat Shurmur as Giants fans. Managing that offensive coordinator and a head coaching position is hard to do, man. And not only that, talk about the offensive coordinator and head coaching job. Let's talk about the head coaching job and GM job. That is just a serious burden on your shoulders. And so I don't know how I feel about Bill O'Brien being the head coach and GM. Maybe it would have been better if he was just the GM and they found a head coach. I know they don't really want to lose a fiery, aggressive, and kind of player coach like Bill O'Brien. The players love him. He's aggressive. He's a no BS type of guy. And I could see why they like him. But it just seems like Bill O'Brien can't get him over the hump. They can't get over the second round or third round. They can't get to the conference championships, and I don't think they will get to a Super Bowl with Bill O'Brien. We don't know what he's going to do as GM, but he did a pretty good job. If I say so myself, he did a pretty good job at GM this year. But you look at Bill O'Brien and, what he did with the Houston Texans. He's been a pretty decent, if not mediocre, head coach for the Houston Texans. Their defense wasn't so good this year. That's why they're getting rid of Romeo Crennel. Not really getting rid of, they're demoting him. They don't really know what they want to do with Romeo Crennel. All they know is that they want him on the team next season. He will not be the defensive coordinator, as they ranked, I believe, 31st in the league in total defense. They were a bad defense this year. Like I said, they had guys like Garyon Conley. They lost Tyrann Mathieu, and they had guys like Vernon Hargreaves out there at cornerback. They got rid of Jadeveon Clowney. J.J. Watt was hurt for the majority of the season. Just a lot of injuries on that defense, and a lot of guys are just inexperienced or just not that good. So Romeo Crennel loses his spot as the defensive coordinator, promoting defensive line coach Anthony Weaver. He will be the defensive coordinator, and they also promoted a lot of promotions and demotions going on now, but they also promoted Jack Easterby, who will be the vice president of football operations, which means Nick Caserio, who you guys know, they were trying to recruit Nick Caserio from the New England Patriots last offseason to be their head of football operations and things like that. So Jack Easterby is going to get that job. And it's funny because Jack Easterby was the one who was recruiting Nick Caserio. But Jack Easterby gets that job. And all in all, I thought the Houston Texans were a dumpster fire as an organization, putting Bill O'Brien at GM. But he did a pretty damn good job. Did a lot of things that were completely unexpected and worked out for the better. They're building their teams. It's trending upward, especially with Deshaun Watson there at quarterback. They have to figure out that offensive line, but they had a really good piece in Laramie Tunsil, who they traded for. They gave up a lot for him, but for a left tackle, a franchise left tackle, you really can give up the world for one if you know they're going to work out. So, good job to Bill O'Brien. We'll see what happens there. I'm still iffy about that. Any Houston Texans fans in the podcast, or any Houston Texans fans in the podcast clip, you guys can let me know, what do you guys think about Bill O'Brien now being titled the GM? It's very interesting. And Romeo Crennel still, having a job as the Houston Texans defensive coach in some way or fashion, and Anthony Weaver now being the defensive coach, the defensive coordinator. So that being said, let's move on to our next subject. And this is something I really want to talk about. I may talk about this for a while, and that's Phillip Rivers. So, as you guys know, Phillip Rivers and the Chargers are going to be breaking up this offseason. The Chargers have announced that Phillip Rivers will not be returning as the Los Angeles Chargers, or Los Angeles/San Diego Chargers quarterback. And this is the first time he will be hitting free agency, the first time he will be with another team, as he's spent all 16 seasons with the San Diego/Los Angeles Chargers. I still find myself saying San Diego Chargers, and it's been about 5 years now. It just won't quit. Just like the Oakland Raiders, I'll probably be calling them the Oakland Raiders for a very long time, now that they're the Las Vegas Raiders. But I want to talk about Phillip Rivers and what he should do moving forward in his career. Now, Phillip Rivers has 59,271 passing yards in his career. That ranks 6th all time. 397 touchdowns, also ranks 6th, and 198 interceptions, which is a pretty good ratio for a quarterback, no doubt about it. Phillip Rivers, if you want to compare it to Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers in the regular season as a quarterback consistently had a better career than Eli Manning. I'll just say that up front. But as far as Phillip Rivers goes right now, does he deserve to be a starting quarterback right now? And I'd say yes, but I don't think a team that's ready to win a Super Bowl is going to grab him. I think a team that's mediocre, I think a team that is really in the abyss of trying to find their identity is going to pick up a Phillip Rivers. You look at the Miami Dolphins, you look at maybe the Jaguars, they got Gardner Minshew and Nick Foles, but I think they're starting to not really trust those two, being that it was a quarterback carousel over there. And then you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So pretty much all the Florida teams. You could argue the Cincinnati Bengals, but there's no way in hell they don't go after Joe Burrow with that first overall pick. So you look at those Florida teams pretty much, and then you got Phillip Rivers. Everybody saying, oh, the guy has a house there in Florida. How many times do we hear that in free agency, that the person has a house there? They've got houses everywhere, guys. They got houses everywhere. But it's very possible. It's very possible that the Miami Dolphins or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pick up Phillip Rivers and that he will play there. My question is, are they the best fit for him? And I'd say maybe Tampa Bay is his best fit, but the thing is, will it work out? Just because it's the best fit doesn't mean it's going to be a good fit. Just because it's the best fit of those options doesn't mean it's going to be working out and they're going to win a Super Bowl. It doesn't mean that whatsoever. If you look at it, Phillip Rivers, and I live in the Central Florida area, so I have a lot of, matter of fact, the person who gave me this cup is a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, and we were talking about Phillip Rivers and his potential of being the next Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and he said, well, it doesn't really matter to me, when asking him about Phillip Rivers being the next Tampa Bay quarterback, he said it doesn't really matter to me because we already have Phillip Rivers, and that's Jameis Winston, because Phillip Rivers in the past couple of years has been that gunslinger who just throws a lot of picks, throws a lot of touchdowns, throws a lot of picks, and if you look at their situation there, in Los Angeles, it's not very different from Tampa Bay. Yes, Tampa Bay has some great wide receivers. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and when they had Deshaun Jackson, but they don't have him anymore, obviously. But those two are a dynamic duo. But how different are they from Keenan Allen and Mike Williams? You really have to put that in a perspective there. You could really look at the cup half full and say, well, Phillip Rivers is going to a team that has Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But you could also look at the glass half empty and say, well, he already had a duo at wide receiver with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. And yes, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams got their yards, respectively. But you obviously could see the Chargers didn't have that well of a season. Is Phillip Rivers capable of carrying a team that doesn't really have an identity? Tampa Bay really doesn't know if they want to be good or bad. They've been that way for a couple of years now. Sure, they're trending up with Bruce Arians. Their defense is starting to get a lot better. As you guys know, they've ranked number 1 this year in stuffing the run. I think they allowed just about 70 yards per game, which is fantastic. They stuffed guys like Christian McCaffrey twice. They stuffed guys like Alvin Kamara, if I'm not mistaken, and also Saquon Barkley. That's the game he got hurt in, but when he was playing in that game, he just couldn't make anything of it. Is Phillip Rivers really ready to take on a team like that and carry them to the playoffs after he couldn't do that with his team that he's been playing with 16 years now? He couldn't get to a conference championship. He's never gone to a conference, if I'm not mistaken, has never gone to a conference championship. You guys can correct me on that. I believe maybe in 2013 he may have won and lost it. No, I don't think so. But I don't think he ever made it to a conference championship. So putting all that into perspective, is he really going to be different from a Jameis Winston? I don't think so. The Chargers are going to get their shot. As we segue to the Chargers are going to get their shot at a quarterback this year. They hold the 6th overall pick in this year's draft, same position the Giants had last year. Maybe they also get their franchise quarterback, and I think that's going to be the move. No doubt about it. I think they're going to get their franchise quarterback, whether that be Tua Tagovailoa, whether that be Justin Herbert, even though Justin Herbert hasn't really been making, the top 10 draft prospect hype since last year. He's still up there on a lot of people's boards, and we'll see what happens when the Combine runs around. But we all know Joe Burrow, unless something crazy happens in the Combine or an injury happens, Joe Burrow is going to be the unanimous pick at number 1. And then you go Chase Young, and then you really kind of have a free-for-all there at number 3 moving down. The question is there going to be a team, including the Chargers, that want to move up to 3, 4, 5, and skip over the Chargers if the Chargers don't skip over? So that being said, the Chargers are in prime position. They really don't have this opportunity at a top 10 pick. The last time they had a top 10 pick was 2016 and 2017, in which they got Joey Bosa at 3 and Mike Williams at 7 in those respective years. But other than that, they haven't had a top 10 pick since they grabbed Eli Manning number 1 overall in 2004. So they need to make something of this top 10 pick, almost top 5 pick. They have a number 6 pick here, man. This is this is going to be the next time they get their quarterback, and this is perfect timing. They get rid of Phillip Rivers. His contract is up, and they have that number 6 overall pick. They can get a quarterback. The question is, are they going to pick Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa? Is it going to work out? I believe the quarterbacks that they have over there right now, I think Cardale Jones is still there, if I'm not mistaken. Geno Smith, or maybe Geno is with the Seattle Seahawks. I know they have some veteran quarterbacks there. I just don't think one of those guys are really going to work out. You think of Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe they make a move for Teddy Bridgewater, being that there are reports out that Drew Brees, if he does retire this year, that they're looking at, this is just reports, that they're looking at Taysom Hill being their franchise quarterback. That's ridiculous, in my opinion. I think he's just a gadget player. But you look at Teddy Bridgewater going to the Chargers. He would probably be my number one option. You got Derek Carr, who is also from that California area, Fresno State, Oakland Raiders, maybe the Los Angeles Chargers, being that the Oakland Raiders or Las Vegas Raiders. This is probably going to be harder than the Los Angeles Chargers. But Derek Carr may find his way staying in California while the Raiders move to Las Vegas, as he goes with the Chargers, or Teddy Bridgewater, or I'm trying to think of some other other quarterbacks out there. But that being said, who knows? The Chargers are in prime position to get their quarterback, their franchise quarterback, whether that be a veteran or free agent. You guys let me know in the comment section below. I'd say go after, draft a quarterback and build with him. There is that scare there. Well, I don't have another quarterback to start, to let this quarterback sit. You're probably going to have to start him right away. But that seems to be the thing now. I mean, a lot of people want to have that situation, but even with their veteran quarterback, they still wind up starting. You look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold started immediately. Carson Wentz, he started immediately. A lot of these guys, they start immediately. So I don't think the Chargers are going to have a problem there if they start Justin Herbert, or they get Tua. Tua's coming back from an injury, so that may be a problem. But I think they'll be all right there at the quarterback position. So I want to move on now. I want to move on now to Eli Manning. And the reason why I kept this Giants subject last is because I might talk about it the most. And as I try to look at how much time we have here, I've been recording for 23 minutes, so that's not bad for a podcast. My first podcast. I definitely need to find a way to get more topics in a short amount of time. Or maybe this is good. I don't know whether you guys like it or not. You guys let me know. But I want to talk about Eli Manning and his Hall of Fame status, potentially in the Hall of Fame. I recently saw a video from Zach Schomler, Strong Opinion Sports, and he made a video saying Eli Manning is not a Hall of Famer. And I thought, with all due respect, I thought it was a weak argument. I thought it was a silly argument. I thought it was not like Zach. Basically what he said was, if it's an indecision, if it's not unanimous, if there is a reason for debate, this guy should not make the Hall of Fame. And this can include any type of player, quarterback especially, other positions as well. And I thought that was silly, because you look at the Hall of Fame right now, and you could throw out a bunch of names that arguably should not be in the Hall of Fame, but are because of certain attributes or accolades or certain moments, right? And there's no disputing that, right? But when you have those guys in there, and I know people say that's a weak argument, don't bring up other names in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry, but you have to. You have to. There's no way you can't. And a lot of people don't like mentioning Joe Namath, right? But you have to mention Joe Namath. I know it was a different point in time as far as statistically goes. I don't expect Joe Namath to be top 10 in passing from 1968 and onward, right? I don't expect him to be that way. But none of his stats are good. All of his stats are bad. His win-loss record, his touchdown to interception ratio, it's all bad. But he made the Hall of Fame because why? Because of the promise, and just the promise. Joe Namath did not make the Hall of Fame because he was an amazing quarterback, because everybody knows, and their mother, even Jets fans know, he wasn't fantastic. He made the Hall of Fame because of the promise. When you look at Eli Manning will not make the Hall of Fame, but it sure helps his case. He will not make the Hall of Fame because he ranks 7th in passing yards. He will not make the Hall of Fame because he ranks 7th in touchdown passes. He will make the Hall of Fame not just because of his 2 Super Bowl rings, because you can argue some quarterbacks may not make the Hall of Fame because of their 1 Super Bowl ring, like Trent Dilfer, like a bunch of these guys, Jeff Hostetler, right? The way he did it, the way he won those Super Bowls, who he beat in that point of time, makes him a Hall of Famer. The Iron Man, Eli Manning. Now, does his name help? Yeah, but Giants fans and the NFL world do not respect Eli Manning just because of his Manning in his name, just because of the Manning in his name. They respect and acknowledge Eli Manning because of the 2 Super Bowl victories against the New England Patriots. Now, we could talk about Super Bowl 46. That was a great victory. But you got to talk about Super Bowl 42. That was the best victory. Arguably the best victory. I'm not talking about maybe it's the best in my opinion, it's the best Super Bowl. Maybe because I'm a Giants fan. A lot of people say that's the best Super Bowl as well. But you can have your respective opinion. But the best single-handed season, and the 2019 Tennessee Titans rank up there as well. But they didn't win it all. The best season from an individual team in the NFL has to be the 2007 New York Giants, led by Eli Manning. At that time, Eli Manning was in his 3rd, 4th year in the NFL and was already just about a top 10 quarterback. He was great. He was fantastic. He was in his prime. Eli Manning was great. And what he did in those Super Bowls makes him a Hall of Famer. The fact that you have to mention Eli Manning when talking the NFL story, and this is what I say, this is even before Eli Manning retired. I said this in multiple videos last year. You cannot tell the story of the NFL without Eli Manning. You can try to work your way around it, but you can't. Because if you try to tell the story about the NFL, you have to mention the 1972 and 1973 Miami Dolphins, right? Though that team was phenomenal, that team, the 1972 Miami Dolphins, were the only team in NFL history to be undefeated. The perfect, 18-0? I believe it wasn't 19-0 at the time. I believe it was 18-0. The perfect 18-0. Or maybe you guys can quote me on that. But then you have to talk about the New England Patriots, how they were just about there to 19-0. 18-1. Who stopped them? The 2007 10-6. I believe it was 10-6. New York Giants, the wild card team, didn't win a division, came in, I believe, as a 6th seed, if I'm not mistaken, and beat one of the greatest teams of all time, arguably the greatest team of all time. You're talking about Tom Brady and Randy Moss. How can you say, you don't need to say anymore, right? Of what Eli Manning did. You guys can argue the defense, right? The defense. Justin Tuck, O.C. Umenyiora, Matthias Kiwanuka, right? You guys can say all that, right? They were like the 27th ranked defense at that time. Sure, they came on in the playoffs. They weren't fantastic. They weren't great. Yeah, they had some great names on there. Don't get me wrong. But they weren't fantastic. It was Eli Manning and his leadership. Of course, Michael Strahan's leadership. I didn't mention his name. Michael Strahan's leadership as well. That got them there. It was a joint effort. But Eli Manning, I guarantee you guys can talk about the lucky throw of David Tyree. No other quarterback would have that passion and grit and toughness to escape a sack not once, but twice, not even twice, 3 times, escape a sack on 4th down, heave the ball downfield, and have it complete, and a few plays later, throw the game-winning touchdown to Plaxico Burress. Yeah, it was wide open, but that was such a big-time moment. You cannot tell the story of the NFL without that moment in history. You can't. You can't talk about the greatest team to ever assemble in the 2007 New England Patriots without talking about Eli Manning, of how he took them down. And on top of that, you have to talk about Super Bowl 46. The next time the Patriots went to the Super Bowl, the Giants were also there to meet them up. And what happened there? They also went down. The Giants were a perfect 2-0 against the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. And the Mario Manningham pass as well. One of the best throws in NFL history. arguably the best throw in NFL history. Maybe I'm biased, but that was a fantastic. I get goosebumps just seeing that play over and over again. It's arguably better than the David Tyree catch. The David Tyree catch came at a time of desperation, which is why we appreciate it a lot more. But if you're talking about straight skill, Eli Manning threw one of the best passes I've ever thrown in the NFL with that Mario Manningham throw. So Eli Manning deserves Hall of Fame status because his name will forever be in everybody's mouth. You will always hear Eli Manning in a conversation talking about the NFL. Not only that, he is the second player of all time, including John Elway, to deny the place of where he's drafted and be forced to be traded elsewhere on draft day. Eli Manning just didn't want to play for San Diego. He wanted to play for New York. He got traded to New York. On draft day, he said, San Diego, do not draft me. I'm not going to play for you. How ballsy can you get? That was one of the most unique moments in NFL history. You have to talk about that as well. Eli Manning, in the media capital of the world, the Iron Man, never let anything get to him. He will forever be talked about by not just Giants fans, but NFL fans everywhere. Whether you like him, whether you hate him, you have to talk about Eli. You have to. That's why he deserves a Hall of Fame status. And you guys could say it's weak. You guys could say it's not a good enough argument. Point me other quarterbacks out there. There's a bunch of quarterbacks out there. You guys want to talk about Ken Stabler? I don't want to hit close to home with Raiders fans because they're extremely nice to me. But was Ken Stabler an elite quarterback of any sort of fashion? Was he one of the best quarterbacks to ever live? No. He still got in the Hall of Fame after he passed away, unfortunately. But there are reasons why players make the Hall of Fame. Some of them are statistics, but some of them are for their accolades and their achievements in the NFL for a fantastic career. Eli Manning had a fantastic career. Will he end up as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL history? No. He's not a top 10 quarterback now. He won't be a top 10 quarterback. That's not what I'm disputing. But it's not fair to compare the Jerry Rices of the world, the Drew Breeses of the world, his brother Peyton Manning, which is also another argument. Well, he's not Peyton Manning. He's not Tom Brady. It's not fair to give that argument because not everybody in the Hall of Fame are of that stature. Are of that status. It's not fair to compare those guys. And I'll completely acknowledge Eli Manning is not one of the best quarterbacks to ever live, but is the best quarterback in Giants history and has done one of the most achievable things in NFL history and taking down the best team that ever assembled in the 2007 New England Patriots. That is the first podcast of the Undrafted Analyst, first episode of the Undrafted Analyst. If you guys are liking this content, if you guys are listening, if you guys are watching, make sure you guys leave your feedback in the comment section below. I will be working on getting this podcast on Spotify. If you guys have Spotify, I'm going to be working on that, trying to see what I can do. But this is going to be a weekly, if not twice a week type thing. I don't know how to say that in like smart terms, right? I was going to say bi-weekly, but that means once every 2 weeks. But I want to try to do this at least every week. If we get some major news, twice a week. And I love doing this. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, guys, if you guys liked it. I don't know when I'll be uploading this. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow morning. But it's going to get out there. With all that being said, I'm KB or Gio. You guys can call me Gio as well as I start to kind of change my my format of videos. If you guys call me KB, Gio, Kid Blue, whatever you guys want to do, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new. And I'll see you guys in the next podcast.